In the infinite darkness of deep space, a small rescue ship drifted toward an unknown wreckage. Captain Celera furrowed her brow as she examined the debris with her advanced scanners. This was a desolate corner of the Draken sector. Who would come here, and why? Amidst the floating metal fragments, faint energy signals flickered. Signs of life, but barely. Celera quickly maneuvered her ship closer to pinpoint the source of the signal. A human. She narrowed her eyes in surprise. Humans rarely ventured beyond their own systems. Finding one alive, this far from home, was almost impossible. Donning her helmet, Celera exited through the airlock and made her way toward the wreckage. Weaving through the lifeless bodies drifting in space, she spotted the sole survivor, a man, unconscious and floating in his torn spacesuit. Without hesitation, she fired her magnetic tether, pulling him toward her and bringing him aboard her ship. His breaths were uneven, his skin pale and drenched in sweat. She connected him to the life support system and scanned his ID in the ship's database. Name, Daniel Cross. Occupation, Space Engineer Affiliation, Earth Federation. Celera sighed softly. She wasn't particularly fond of humans, but a life was a life. A few hours later, Daniel's eyes fluttered open. As he noticed the unfamiliar lights above him, he instinctively tried to sit up, but his body protested. He was weak. A figure came into focus, tall and athletic, with silvery blue skin. Her sharp features, cat-like glowing eyes, and long, elegant arms made her look strikingly alien. Daniel's voice was hoarse. "Where am I?" Celera crossed her arms. "You're alive. Isn't that enough?" As Daniel tried to clear his mind, he noticed the wary look in her eyes. She had saved him, yet something was on her mind. "You still haven't told me where I am," he said weakly. Celera rolled her eyes. "You're in the Draken sector, far from human territories, and not exactly in a safe place." Daniel struggled to recall what had happened. His ship had been attacked, and then only darkness and the cold emptiness of space. "My crew? Are they?" Celera shook her head. "I only found you." Daniel took a deep breath, clenching his fists on the blanket. He had survived, but he was alone. "So, what happens now?" Celera considered for a moment. "I'll take you back to human space, but first you need to recover." Daniel nodded. He didn't have much choice. But just then, a shrill alarm blared through the ship. Celera rushed to the cockpit with Daniel struggling to follow. Her fingers danced over the controls, revealing a holographic display of a looming warship. "This isn't good," Celera muttered. Daniel frowned. "What is that?" "An HFY pirate ship, and we're in their territory." Daniel swallowed hard. "Are they after us?" Celera gritted her teeth. "They probably detected a human on board. Human organs fetch a good price on the black market." Daniel's eyes widened. "Please don't even joke about that." A voice boomed through the ship's external speakers. "Unidentified vessel, power down and surrender, or we will open fire." Celera turned to Daniel. "Hold on tight, we're running." As Daniel gripped his seat, Celera engaged the engines. The ship lurched forward, narrowly avoiding laser blasts erupting behind them. The chase had begun. Celera's ship shuddered violently. The control panels flashed red as alarms blared. "This is bad," Daniel yelled, gripping his seat. Celera clenched her teeth. "Our shields are weak. One more hit and—" Before she could finish, a laser beam from the pirate ship struck their engines. The ship's power died instantly. The artificial gravity shut off, and they both floated weightlessly. "Hold on!" Celera shouted, switching to emergency systems and manually seizing control. The ship was being pulled toward a planet's atmosphere. Daniel looked out the window. Below them, a lush green world stretched out, with swirling storms churning in the sky. "Did you just let them push us here?" he asked, panicked. Celera sighed. Would you rather they blasted us to pieces? As the ship entered the atmosphere, the hull rattled violently. The heat from the friction caused streaks of fire to trail past the cockpit. Solara tightened her grip on the controls. "This is going to be rough. Brace yourself." Daniel held his breath. The ship plunged downward, crashing through the thick canopy of an enormous forest. Trees shattered under its weight before it finally skidded to a stop with a deafening impact. Then, silence. Daniel slowly opened his eyes, his head spinning but his body intact. "Are we alive?" Solara pushed herself up from her seat. For now, the ship was heavily damaged. Consoles were sparking, and some systems had completely failed. Worst of all, there were strange noises coming from outside. Daniel frowned. "What is that?" Solara looked out the window and her eyes widened. "I don't think we're alone." She quickly checked the ship's status. One of the consoles was still operational, but the systems were in bad shape. "The engines are completely offline," she muttered. "But maybe we can fix them." Daniel took a deep breath and nodded. "Then we need to start immediately. If the pirates are tracking us, we don't have much time." Solara pressed a button, activating the ship's external scanners. A holographic display flickered to life, and she frowned. "The pirate ship is in orbit. They didn't follow us directly, but they know we're here. It won't take long before they track us and land." Daniel leaned over the control panel. "How long until we can get the engines running?" Solara sighed. "If the outer hull isn't too badly damaged, we might be able to gather enough energy for takeoff in a few hours." Daniel quickly got to his feet and headed toward the maintenance bay to gather tools. But just as he did, a faint vibration ran through the ship. Solara and Daniel exchanged glances. "Is someone out there?" Daniel whispered. Solara narrowed her eyes and checked the ship's external cameras. In the darkness of the night, strange shadows moved among the trees. Daniel swallowed hard. "Is it the pirates?" Solara shook her head. This is something else. But they might not have time to figure out what." Solara made a quick decision. "We need to start repairs immediately, and we need to do it quietly." Daniel nodded. "Then let's get to it." Daniel followed Solara into the engine room. The air was thick with smoke, and some of the pipes had ruptured. "If I can stabilize the power supply, we might be able to generate enough energy for an emergency takeoff," Solara said, grabbing a tool from the side. Daniel nodded and leaned in to help. As he reached for a damaged cable, Solara suddenly jerked back with a sharp hiss of pain. Daniel turned to her quickly. "What happened?" A deep purple liquid dripped from her hand. A jagged piece of metal had sliced through her skin, leaving a deep cut. "Damn it," Solara muttered through gritted teeth. Sharp metal piece. Daniel immediately moved closer. "Okay, stay calm. We can deal with this. Where's the medical kit?" Solara shook her head. "The medical systems were damaged in the crash. So..." Daniel exhaled sharply. "Great. That means I'll have to improvise." He scanned the room and pulled up a half-functional console. The ship had an advanced medical system, but it had been damaged, meaning manual intervention was required. Daniel smirked slightly. "I fix machines as an engineer. I guess today I'm fixing an alien too." Solara rolled her eyes but smirked back. "Just don't kill me and I'll be grateful." Daniel found a biosealant gel that could close wounds. However, the ship's database lacked enough information on Solara's biology. The substance might work, or it might be toxic to her. "Okay, we have a decision to make," Daniel said. "This gel works on humans, but your physiology is different. I don't know what will happen if I use it." Solara clenched her teeth. "Do we have any other options?" Daniel glanced around and decided to try repairing the damaged medical systems. Maybe he could use them to treat Solara properly. As a temporary measure, Daniel wrapped a bandage around her wound and started reconnecting wires in the medical bay. But there was a problem. Activating the power system would make them more visible to the pirates. Just then, A warning light flickered on. Solara narrowed her eyes. What is it? Daniel's face tensed. The pirates are here. On the holographic display, several armed figures appeared outside the ship. They were large, armored HFY pirates, moving cautiously through the forest with plasma rifles in hand. Solara gritted her teeth. If they find us, we're dead. Daniel scanned the area quickly. Can we speed up the repairs? Solara shook her head. The engines are still offline, and if I power up the systems now, they'll detect us immediately. Daniel took a deep breath. Then we need to hide. Solara stood up with a pained expression and moved toward a weapons locker. She grabbed a small plasma pistol and handed it to Daniel. Daniel eyed the weapon skeptically. I don't use guns. Solara raised an eyebrow. You're learning today. Daniel's hands trembled as he took the weapon. This wasn't his fight, but survival demanded action. Outside, the pirates were getting closer. They were talking amongst themselves. There must be a human here. Someone still alive on this ship. Another one let out a raspy chuckle. Then let's drag them out. Daniel and Solara held their breath, listening to every step. One wrong move could be the end of them. As the pirates circled the ship, Solara grabbed Daniel's arm. We need to get out, now. Daniel whispered back, but we need to fix the ship. Solara narrowed her eyes. If we stay, we won't have time to fix anything. Survival first. Daniel hesitated but nodded. Solara quickly opened a small escape hatch on the side of the ship. The outside was pitch black, the dense forest swallowing the moonlight. Quiet, Solara whispered. Both of them carefully crawled out, slipping into the shadows of the towering trees. Moonlight filtered through the leaves as they heard the pirates muttering behind them. The ship looks empty. No, they're here. They must be close. Solara gave Daniel a quick nod, pointing ahead. A small slope led down into the deeper part of the forest. Daniel followed, stepping as lightly as possible. Then suddenly, beep, beep, beep. Daniel froze. Solara stiffened instantly. Motion detectors, Solara whispered. The pirates immediately turned. There, after them. Blasts of plasma fire tore through the night. Daniel and Solara sprinted into the trees, dodging between thick trunks as energy bolts scorched the bark around them. Faster, Solara urged, pulling Daniel along. Daniel's legs burned, but they couldn't stop. Just as he took another step, his foot caught on something. Clank! A metallic snap echoed through the trees. Daniel barely had time to react before the ground vanished beneath him. Oh, hell! In an instant, he was yanked into the air, suspended upside down by a rope snare. Solara! Daniel shouted, swinging helplessly. Solara turned, but the ground beneath her suddenly collapsed, and she fell into a massive net. From the darkness, eerie whispers echoed. Invaders. Strangers captured. Dark silhouettes emerged from the forest. Tall, slender beings with greenish skin, their hands curved into bony claws. Their glowing eyes were locked onto Daniel and Solara. Daniel swallowed hard. I think we just met the locals. As Daniel dangled upside down, Solara struggled in the net. The beings observed them in silence. One of them stepped forward, a tall, gaunt figure with an air of authority. They wore a cloak woven from plant fibers, and a glowing blue symbol pulsed on their forehead. Daniel had a gut feeling this was their leader. Can you let us go? Solara asked through gritted teeth. The leader barely spared her a glance before turning their piercing gaze onto Daniel. Their dark pupils dilated. Human. A ripple of murmurs spread through the gathered beings. Human. He resembles the one from the prophecy. How did he get here? Daniel blinked in confusion. Wait, are you talking about me? The leader raised a hand, silencing the whispers. Slowly, they approached Daniel, reaching out with long fingers, though they didn't touch him. They only observed. "A human from the stars," the leader murmured. "We did not expect this." Solara frowned. "Didn't expect what?" The leader turned to her, bowing their heads slightly. "Our ancient texts foretold the return of a human, but this is too soon." Daniel's head spun. "You must have me confused with someone else." The leader took a deep breath. "That remains unknown, but we must find out." The beings gently lowered Daniel to the ground, releasing him from the snare. Solara, however, remained trapped in the net. She clenched her jaw. "What about me?" The leader studied her for a long moment. "You are one of them." Solara sighed. "So, you still see me as a threat?" The leaders shook their head. "Number. But until we understand the human's identity, we cannot decide if we can trust you." Daniel turned to Solara, offering a reassuring look. "It's okay. Let's find out what they want." The beings motioned for Daniel to follow them deeper into the forest. Answers awaited him. The locals led Daniel through the dense jungle, weaving between towering trees until they reached a vast, ancient temple hidden in the foliage. Massive stone pillars loomed over them, their surfaces carved with intricate patterns of stars and human-like figures. Daniel stared in awe. "This place, it looks thousands of years old." The leader nodded. "This is the legacy of our ancestors. And if you are truly the one from the prophecy, you must prove it." Daniel frowned. "Prove it how?" The leader gestured toward a massive stone door covered in glowing symbols. "Our ancestors left a test to recognize the true one. If you are meant to be here, this door will open. But if you are not..." Daniel hesitated. "And if I'm not, what happens?" The leader's gaze darkened. "The door will not accept you." Daniel took a deep breath. He had no other choice. He turned around and looked at Solara, but she was still being held captive. He was on his own. With heavy steps, he approached the door and placed his hand on it. The stone was cold, yet somehow, it felt alive. At that moment, the symbols began to glow. The natives held their breath. Suddenly, Daniel felt dizzy. Strange visions flooded his mind. Unknown planets, massive star maps, and the silhouettes of ancient beings who once lived here. And then, a voice. "The time of return has come." As Daniel's hand remained on the door, the symbols shimmered and transformed into flowing streams of blue energy. The massive stone door groaned as it slowly opened. The natives stepped back in awe and astonishment. Even Solara lifted her head from where she was trapped. "This is impossible," she whispered. Beyond the door lay a dark chamber. Daniel took a deep breath and stepped inside. Suddenly, beams of blue light flickered in the center of the room, activating a massive rotating hologram. A star map. Daniel narrowed his eyes. The map covered a vast portion of the galaxy. But one point, one very distinct point, was glowing. Earth. At that moment, an ancient, resonating voice echoed through the hologram. "If you are seeing this, then our legacy has reached you." Daniel flinched. "Is this a recording?" The voice continued. "We were travelers of the stars. Thousands of years ago, we visited your world. The first spark of humanity was ignited with us. But then we vanished. And now, one has returned." Daniel's heart pounded. Could this be a clue to humanity's origins? "You are one of the last carrying our bloodline," the voice continued. "Are you ready to learn the truth?" Daniel hesitated for a moment. Everything he had experienced so far was one thing, but what he felt at that moment was different. A connection, a calling. "Yes," he whispered. "I'm ready." The hologram initiated a new sequence, beginning to unveil the forgotten knowledge to Daniel. As Daniel tried to comprehend the star map projected before him, the implications of humanity having a celestial heritage overwhelmed him. "Is this real?" he murmured. Just then, an explosion shook the temple. Boom! The natives cried out in panic. Celera struggled within the net that held her captive. "Pirates!" she shouted. Metallic footsteps echoed from outside the door. Pirates, weapons drawn, were forcing their way in. Daniel immediately crouched down, seeking cover. The natives took defensive stances, wielding primitive but effective weapons. But the pirates had superior plasma rifles. "We need to run," Celera whispered. "Or they'll kill us all here." Yet the hologram's voice still echoed. "Make your choice, heir of the stars." Daniel clenched his teeth. He needed to find a way out. He couldn't let this knowledge be lost as the temple collapsed. As the pirates flooded into the temple, an ancient alarm activated within the walls. The natives recoiled in fear, but their leader turned to Daniel and Celera with a determined expression. "There is no escape now," he declared. "We will accept this battle." Daniel's eyes widened. But how? They have plasma weapons. The leader lifted his head, pointing toward the deepest chamber of the temple. "Our ancestors left us a legacy. The time has come." As the pirates continued their assault, the natives rushed toward the temple's central stone platform. The leader placed his hands on an ancient symbol, whispering words in a long-forgotten tongue. Suddenly, the temple walls trembled. Dust rose into the air. Activation complete. Massive mechanical pillars emerged from the stone floor. From within them, long dormant, yet still powerful-looking energy spears and shields emerged. The natives grasped their ancestors' weapons, letting out battle cries. The weapons shimmered like starlight. The pirates hesitated, taken aback. "What the hell are those?" But it was too late to retreat. The natives, now empowered, launched their counterattack, and the battle erupted within the temple. Daniel grabbed a spear and turned to Celera. "I have no idea how to use this, but I'm going to try." Celera smirked, grabbing a shield. "I do. Follow me." The great battle had begun. Amidst the chaos, the temple began to shake violently. Chunks of stone fell from the walls, and the ancient cracks in the floor widened. Daniel parried a pirate's attack just as Celera stumbled. "The place is collapsing," she shouted. The natives realized it too. Some stopped fighting and began retreating, but their leader turned to Daniel and yelled, "You must control the power, or we all die here." Boom! A massive pillar crashed down, filling the air with dust. The pirates, realizing the growing danger, started to withdraw. Daniel sprinted toward the stone platform where the hologram still hovered. His eyes frantically scanned the glowing symbols in the room. "How do I stop this?" Celera rushed beside him. "This place is ancient, but it must have a power source. Maybe we can stabilize it." Daniel gritted his teeth. "And if I can't?" Celera placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Then we have no choice but to try." A massive crack split the temple floor open beneath them. Time was running out. Just then, a deep mechanical thoom echoed from the depths of the temple. Moments later, a massive stone platform beneath them began to slide open. A thick cloud of dust rose as a dark tunnel was revealed. Celera's eyes widened. "It's an escape route." The leader turned to Daniel in astonishment. "The temple has accepted you. It's protecting us." But the pirates had also noticed the tunnel opening. "They're escaping," one of them shouted, raising his weapon. Boom! Plasma fire scorched the air. Daniel grabbed Celera's hand. "Inside now!" he yelled. As the natives rushed into the tunnel, the temple's ceiling began collapsing completely. At the last second, Daniel and Celera slid under a falling pillar, diving into the tunnel just as massive stone debris sealed the entrance shut behind them. Darkness swallowed everything. Breathing heavily, Daniel turned to Solara. "Where do we go now?" Solara gazed deeper into the tunnel, where dim blue lights flickered along the walls. "I don't know where this leads, but at least we're alive." Neither of them realized, however, that what awaited them was a mystery far greater than the temple itself. As Daniel and Solara moved cautiously through the narrow tunnel, their footsteps echoed. The natives remained silent, but the same question was written across all their faces. Where did this path lead? Reaching the tunnel's end, they were met with massive metal doors covered in ancient symbols, some still glowing faintly with blue light. Solara placed her hand on the door, and an old mechanism rumbled to life. "This is an elevator," she whispered in awe. The doors groaned as they slid open, and everyone's breath caught. Before them stood an enormous, ancient, yet fully intact starship. The ship floated within the cavern as if suspended in time. Its central control panel shimmered with star maps pulsating softly. Daniel's eyes roamed across the massive vessel in wonder. This is a legacy from the stars. Solara stepped forward, reaching for the control panel. As her fingers touched it, holographic displays flickered to life. This ship still works. The natives watched in stunned silence as their leader turned to Daniel. "This is your destiny. The temple brought you here for a reason." Daniel stepped forward, his footsteps heavy with purpose. Lowering himself into the pilot's seat, his fingers hovered over controls untouched for thousands of years. The ship's systems powered up, engines rumbled awake. Daniel looked at the others. "Are you ready?" Solara smiled. "The sky is waiting for us." As the ship slowly ascended, the cavern walls trembled. Then the ceiling parted, revealing the endless expanse of stars above. Daniel and Solara had uncovered the link between humanity and the ancient starfarers. And now, they were ready to set sail on a new adventure.